Hello, curious friends, and welcome to Building Your Best Brain podcast. If you're viewing me on video today, you'll see that I am outside. I'm on my back deck. And for this podcast in particular, we'll be talking about the different levels of stress regulation. So, kind of the different markers and criteria for this scale I basically made myself on your brain's ability to manage stress. And so I thought doing it outside would be a lovely way to naturally calm us all down. But there's classic Montreal, there's construction nearby. But I think the audio will sound fine. And honestly, it's super fitting because it's a part of the stress regulation metrics. So it'll be a really good test for me on how I can get this message across while managing a stressor like sounds of drilling. Um, Alta might make an appearance. That's my cat. She's outside with me with her little harness and leash. Also here to talk about stress levels, your ability to manage. And the reason why I think this episode is really important today is that a lot of times, as we're figuring out how to regulate our stress, as we're identifying our stressors and discovering tools and ways of understanding and perspective shifts to be able to manage it, there's a lot of frustration that comes with that. And it's certainly been the case for me where I've been really frustrated and impatient with myself when it comes to managing my stress, which of course adds another stressor. It unfortunately doesn't help the cause, it kind of hurts the cause. And I see that with a lot of people as well, people that I teach in person, one on one, people who follow me on Instagram. There is this frustration. And I think having this metric, having this scale of kind of what level you're at in terms of stress regulation, which can be applied to different areas of life, right? Like, for example, your ability to manage stress at work could be stronger than your ability to manage stress at home, will provide some compassion towards yourself, right? Having this understanding of what level you're at can provide some compassion, some context. It can also help you in celebrating when you're in that level, when you bump up a level. And I know what you're thinking. No, there is no way for us to jump levels. And that's because our brain doesn't work that way, right? It's cells that fire together, wire together. Repeated stimulation is what strengthens circuits. And that repeated stimulation happens at each level. But having this awareness of these levels and being able to notice when you're in the level and that you're basically, the work is working in that level, will help you advance through them quicker. And so without further ado, I'm going to begin to describe all the levels, sharing you examples and personal stories I've had of what that feels like, what's happening, and what it means at the level of your nervous system. Because really, in this day and age, I mean, it's always been important, but in this day and age, stress regulation is absolutely key. And it's absolutely key for you to learn how to regulate yourself because the world is not going to do it for you. And yes, there are health implications if we allow our stress system to go wild, to go chronic, to not be regulated ever. But even on a deeper level and a more day to day level, we want to be able to have a brain that's resilient because having a brain that's resilient, a brain that's able to bounce back to a balanced place, is a brain that is going to create safety, is going to create security, that feels safe and secure to be creative, to be productive, to be vulnerable. And there's a lot of really great gifts that come with that, that unfortunately or fortunately, right, we don't have when we're in a place where we're stuck in survival. We don't get those brilliant ideas that make us more money. We don't connect with our loved ones the same way. We don't put ourselves out there the same way when we're under this kind of threat. So without further ado, let's get into level one. Level one is knowing that something is up. And so, a great way to begin to unpack this one is me during my master's. So, if you don't know me and you don't know my story, basically, I am a neuroscientist first. And then, through my burnout of my master's, I discovered yoga, which led me to a bunch of tools, breath work, meditation, all that. And it kind of opened me up to a world where I've been merging the two ever since for stress regulation as one kind of pillar that I love to work on and support people with. And so during my master's, I was working 14 to 18-hour days, drinking lots of coffee, smoking lots of cigarettes, basically putting in every single ounce of energy I could towards my goal, which was to publish a first author paper in my master's. Doing this in neuroscience at McGill. And basically, I led myself to pretty severe burnout where I went to the psychiatrist's office. I had a diagnosis. I was put on medication. And leading up to that point, so before I got the diagnosis, before I was put on medication, I knew that something was up, right? I knew that my behavior, you know, being able to not eat for long stretches, not sleeping well, not getting a lot of sleep. My skin also had quite a bit of acne, and honestly, the color of my skin didn't look great. Like I was clearly not well. And so I knew something was up. I knew that something was up and that it was likely stress. But the big thing with level one, so level one regulation, is that you're under the impression that you don't have to do anything to regulate your stress. So you know that there's something up, you know that your nervous system stress response is activated, but that's the extent of it. Basically, at the time, what I thought was, well, I am this stressed because, I'm trying to publish a paper. This is just what you need to do. My goal is really ambitious. So, it is what it is. It'll be better once it's published. And of course, we on this podcast have talked about before, and I'll put it in the show notes, that doing that if then statement, like I will be, for example, not stressed when or then the paper comes out. So I'll be less stressed when the paper comes out, is placing conditions on your brain. And of course, when those conditions aren't met, your brain is scanning and basically looking for ways that you can't be relaxed because you haven't published the paper yet. So that's a very dangerous place to be, but we can't go anywhere from stress regulation if we don't even know that the symptoms we're experiencing are stress related. So this is a great place to start and a place we all need to start. And so that awareness is something to be celebrated. It's not something to be frustrated over. Level two almost reminds me of what often a lot of people experience in grad school when they have a big collection of data, which is called analysis paralysis. And so you have all this awareness and your awareness is increasing, right? So for me, this would have been after my master's, as the paper was kind of coming behind me and I was working at a coffee shop as a barista, searching for jobs and other PhD positions. I became more aware of how many stress symptoms I had kind of all the time. So it was no longer just in the particular context of grad school, but, working at the coffee shop, I was living with my family at the time. I was dating at the time, and kind of seeing how like stress symptoms were showing up everywhere. And then every time I noticed it, I didn't celebrate or I didn't see that as a positive thing. I saw it honestly all as negative. And that's where the kind of paralysis component comes in, because you're seeing it all and you're starting to try some tools because you've noticed it so often. You're willing to do something different. You're kind of like, okay, so before with level one, you weren't willing to do anything different, and level two, you are willing to do something different. But the stress symptoms are still there and you're hyper aware of them. And this is where I find a lot of people come to me, and it's certainly when I started like reaching out to other teachers or like reaching out for different kinds of information, because I was so pissed off so pissed off that, not everything was changing right away when I noticed the stress symptoms. And it made me feel like something was wrong with me, that, I noticed these stress symptoms and I was trying like some tools and it wasn't changing everything right away. And this place is a great place. And there's a few shifts you can make here that'll help you kind of move on to the next level, which is one, that like in level one, right? Awareness is the first step. You cannot fix anything or regulate anything that you have no idea exists. And knowing that it exists and seeing that awareness requires courage. And it also requires, basically, if you have the ability to notice a stress symptom, you also have that same ability to regulate it. It's totally, totally possible. So every time you notice it, you can begin to see it as a positive of like, I noticed this. This means that I can shift it. And with the brain as well, it's small repeated actions that make the change. So every time you notice it and you pick up the tool, you're taking a small step towards that symptom changing over time. And once you start seeing it like that, even if it doesn't feel like it's shifting, it is. And having that awareness of, okay, I had a stress symptom there, I noticed it, I picked up a tool, amazing. Or even just picking up the tool every day and thinking to yourself, this 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes that I've taken for myself is helping this stress symptom. It is showing my brain that there is a new way. That's the way to kind of manage level two in a way that it can catapult you to level three faster. It's really, and people stay in this longer than they need to because of that frustrating dance of seeing the symptom, picking up the tool, not feeling better right away. So then you're getting frustrated, thereby kind of increasing that symptom, because that frustration, that pressure, that urgency all activates your stress response as well. Level three is the ability to reverse and unpack a stressful situation, but it doesn't happen automatically. It takes effort. This reminds me a bit of a delayed response. And so, a really great example of this for me was when I was working in a biotech company. I recently got promoted to a new position and they gave me this project I was really excited about. And I put quite a bit of pressure on myself for this because I really felt like it was going to be kind of like a sign that, they can feel confident in me and my abilities, give me more projects, that, they made the right decision, they didn't make the wrong decision. I was making it, and this is a key thing we'll talk about later, is I was making it mean something about myself. And so I was presenting this project that I was working on in two separate meetings, and this was all online during COVID times. And the first meeting, I presented it to a group of scientists, and one scientist mentioned a caveat of the experiment, something that, I had considered, but he presented it in a way that was really, um, to me, what it felt like was intense, and that it basically kind of made the whole project worthless. Again, how I interpret it, not the case, of course. And I immediately had that stress response, right? Like my stomach dropped, my face got flush and red, and I answered the questions to the best of my ability. And then I honestly don't remember a lot of it. When the call ended, I remember calling my mom. I had 15 minutes before the next meeting where I'm giving the same presentation, where this same scientist was also going to be there. And I was crying like hysterically, couldn't catch my breath, and was really, really struggling because, again, I made it mean something about myself. I made it mean that, the company made the wrong decision, that I can't do this, that I'm not capable, that I'm not smart. Anyway, so I was basically inconsolable, like bawling my eyes out. And then 5 minutes before the meeting, I did some breath work, splashed cold water on my face, and gave the whole presentation again. got the whole same kind of series of questions, um, and then finished it, continued to cry, was inconsolable. And basically, I was able to unpack the stressful experience using my tools that I had. And it took me a few days, maybe even a little over a week, to feel okay about what happened and how to move forward and how to not make it basically mean anything about myself. And so here, this is a huge win where you have a delayed response, but you're able to deal with some really big life stressors and reverse them in your brain and reverse them in your body. But it's not something that is happening automatically yet. But when it does happen, a big thing that can help you reach that next level, our level 4, is to celebrate the shit out of them and basically give your brain as much reward as possible, saying like, this is what we want to do when things like that come up and we feel those physical sensations that we're in an immediate panic or stress response. This is what we want to do every single time. And so beating yourself up for how long it takes or for your reaction in the moment is not helpful, right? That just adds to the stress response even more. And this is the only way, because your brain is not wired to respond any differently. You're basically teaching it to respond to stress that way. And having big moments and being able to reverse big moments is a huge component of rewiring your brain so that it's doing it automatically. And so, again, we celebrate those, we give ourselves lots of reward. We see that all the work that we've been doing is working, and that'll catapult us quicker to level 4. And so, even in my relationship, for example, with my partner, there was at the beginning of our relationship moments where we would have big conversations that were triggering, that would bring something in me that I would need a minute, right? So instead of, and I guess, you know what, to be fair, this is level 5, or this is kind of like level 4.B, but let's call it level 5, where we're able to pause. So level 3 was delayed response. 4, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm getting my levels confused. Level 4 is the pause. And if I did get these levels confused, I'll clarify it in the show notes. But we got 1, which is what's up. 2, analysis paralysis. Yeah, exactly. 3, this is so funny, delayed response. And 4 is the pause. And so in my relationship, especially in the beginning, and even with some topics now, because relationships is where we're most vulnerable. And so we're not here beating ourselves up for showing up to relationships vulnerable. It's a good thing. It's how we're designed, and it's how we grow and level up as humans, is through relationships. That's where a lot of my growth has happened. Lucky me. And especially in the beginning, we would have these big conversations that would trigger me. And instead of reacting, right, which is what I did at the old job, right, was after the call, I immediately had this huge reaction. I would instead ask for a pause. I would kind of take in the information. I would ask questions to clarify what he meant, what kind of his objectives were, what are his expectations. And I was in a place that was elevated, right? So I could feel myself getting stressed. I could feel maybe something in my stomach. I could feel my body getting hot, and everybody's stress symptoms are going to look different in their body. But I knew that I was starting to react and that I wasn't going to be able to um, I wasn't going to be able to respond in that moment. And so I would tell him, like, I hear you, like, thank you for bringing this up. I appreciate it. I'm going to need a moment to digest, and then we can unpack it later. And I have a great partner that's able to do that and not take it personally. And then I also give that space for him if he needs We call it to noodle a bit on something. And then I can, use my tools, allow time and space to unpack whatever it is that he brought to my attention, and then come at it in a much more neutral place. And this is great because you're able to have a stress response, a reaction that doesn't have to get full blown. It doesn't have to have a complete emotional burst right away. You're able to temper it in real time. You might not be able to reverse it in real time, which is what you kind of go off to the side, do your tools, noodle, and come back. But that takes so much energy in your brain, and your brain has to literally be built differently to do that. And so, if you've experienced that ever in your different areas of life, of your ability to feel stress coming on and pause it in real time so that you can go unpack it later, do the tools later, that is absolutely incredible and something that would definitely help to take notice and to celebrate, and to also celebrate what happens after that fact. So, seeing how doing that pause has benefited you physically and emotionally, but also benefited the situation physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever that may be. Because that's the thing with stress response that people don't always link together, is that it's one of the most unselfish things you can do for yourself. One of the most generous things you can do for yourself. One of the most, what's the word? Selfless. One of the most selfless things you can do, because it impacts everybody around you. And so your ability to pause not only benefits you, but it benefits every single person around you. And so we're moving to level 5, and level 5 is being able to regulate in real time. And this one I have a story for that's rather a recent story. It happened over the summer. We're now in fall. If you can watch me on video, you can see that the leaves are starting to change color. We're like mid-October. I had a contract for a few months with a company that I really enjoyed working with, a company that's really helped me start my business with using at-home EEG devices to help guide meditations or to help train your brain into different states. And it was super cool. It was a really great contract. They gave me the software for free. They were paying me to make content that I was already making already. And I was learning a lot from them. I was learning a lot about the neurofeedback field, about brainwave training. It was a lot of fun. And everything was going well. So I was creating content. I was having meetings with them. I loved meeting with the team. They loved meeting with me. They really enjoyed the content. The content was getting positive feedback. And I am like close with the CEO, and he was kind of hinting that, we need to review if we're going to renew your contract, but like we as a team have been really happy with the work so far. I then get a message to have a Zoom call with him where he did the brave thing of telling me in person, I mean face to face, that the contract was not going to be renewed. And same thing, right? Stomach drop, face flush. Now you guys know my stress response so intimately. And what was cool was I did more than just pause it. I was able to be present for that entire conversation. And basically what I did, right, was I slowed down my breathing. And in real time, as he kind of told me initially that the contract wasn't going to be renewed, I started thinking of all the positive ways that how not renewing that contract is going to benefit me in the long run. So instead of kind of getting into doomsday, thinking of all the negatives of why the contract wasn't getting renewed, which there were some and were very easy to think about, was looking at all of the positives. And this is not so much like toxic positivity or thinking like, oh, okay, well, since I'm looking at all the positives, there are no negatives because that's not true. But seeing the neutrality helps me get out of my stress response. It helps my amygdala, which is my fear center in my brain, to simmer down, and I can use more of my brain in that conversation and be more present. And so essentially, they just want to go a different direction in terms of their audience that they wanted to speak to, which is not my audience, which is perfectly fine. And they wanted to keep in touch and work together in the future. And because I was able to neutralize that stressor in real time, I was a lot more present for the conversation. The relationship I have with the CEO is still really strong because I was able to do that. And that relationship we have together is going to continue to benefit me in the future, whether we work the same way as we did a few months ago, or we don't and we work in different ways together. And this is like, I mean, I'm incredibly proud of myself for doing this, and it's something that I want for everyone, is to be able to regulate stress in real time, not so that it never exists, because it exists for a good reason, but so that we can come back to a balanced place no matter what life throws our way. And that just gives us so much more energy, gives us so much more brain power, gives us so much more brain space to be able to put it towards things that we want. And so neutralizing that in real time, one of the big things that I got out of it, and of course, I neutralized in real time, and then I did some stress regulating stuff after the fact, because of course I was bummed, and that's okay. What that stressor showed me was a true desire I have. And that's what stressors help us with, right? Is really finding the underbelly of what we're making that stressor mean about us, or what it's showing us that we want or desire. And basically, what it showed me with what I want is that I want to continue this work. I want to continue doing neurofeedback. I want to continue helping people train their brains to be in different states and feel empowered to do so themselves. That's really what the EEGs do. Is it's not changing anything in your brain, but it's just showing you what your brain's doing so that you can figure out how to change it. And not having the contract just means that I had to decide if I wanted to do that on my own without the company's support, without them supporting the free software, without having that extra flow come in with the contract. And the answer is yes. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And I almost feel more empowered that I am doing it on my own, that it is going really well, that people are seeing results, that all my spots are filled up, and that I have the desire to keep going, keep learning, keep growing. And it would feel different if, maybe I'd feel less accountable. Maybe I would actually hesitate and wait before putting it out there. Maybe, I would have less time and energy because I'd be busy creating content versus, working with clients, reaching out to people, learning different ways to make the service better. And so that's what that level 5 is, being able to regulate in real time and to free up that energy so you can use it for things you desire. It's huge, huge, huge. Anytime you're doing that, that is like triple A, gold star. Go take yourself out to celebrate. And do that for all of them, right? Because that's the real thing here with having these levels, is you can know when your brain is winning and tell your brain that it's winning in whatever version that is for you, so that you can keep growing. Our brain needs so much reward to know that it's doing a good job, to know that, oh, okay, this is the kind of stimulation you want. I will use my energy to make those circuits stronger so that we can continue to do that. And so those are the 5 levels, and those are the 5 levels that I have experienced and feel comfortable sharing the tools, kind of sharing the symptoms, sharing the brain wins. And then there's a new level that I'm exploring right now that I'm happy to share, and we'll definitely share more about once I get through the other side of it. This is basically feeling comfortable with uncertainty. And this is less so having an immediate stressor. So the example I had in level 5, right, where I had the call with the CEO and that was immediate stressor that I was regulating in real time. Being uncomfortable with uncertainty is basically recognizing that every single day we're met with uncertainty, right? Um, Even things that we take for granted, right? Like, let's say our jobs are uncertain, our relationships with family are uncertain, our physical health can be uncertain, right? Like, you can look at anything with those kind of uncertain level glasses. And when you do that, which is completely natural, right? And doesn't make you a bad person or a defective person or a broken person. But when you do that, you're activating your stress response at this kind of low level all the time, creating kind of conditions all the time, creating a bit of pressure all the time, a bit of urgency, right? To basically want to regulate the uncertainty by making it the opposite, which is certain, and having, well, like if this is certain, then I can feel this. And this is superhuman. And what I'm finding right now, in particular with news outlets and social media, is that it thrives on you feeling uncertain about yourself or you feeling like something is wrong or something needs to be a certain way to feel something, to feel a certain way. Basically, forcing you to do something, to buy something, getting some kind of emotional reaction out of you so that you're driven to action of some sort to feel certainty. And that's, for lack of a better word, manipulation, right? Kind of using your emotions to create instability within yourself. And so, level 6, feeling comfortable with uncertainty, feeling like you can be in your parasympathetic response, your rest and digest, in the land of uncertainty because you are secure. Your brain feels safe, your body feels safe. And that is a beautiful place to be and something that does require training. There's a reason why it is level 6 and not level 1. And the reason why it's all the way over here is because it needs all of those levels to get there. And so for me right now, I can't wait when I share this with you guys. I am finishing my PhD. And so I've had all these years, right, of going through all these levels, of picking up all these tools, of teaching them and sharing them. And now I'm in this place that lots of people are in or have been in, where the next after my PhD is, in theory, very much uncertain, right? I'm going to graduate. I'm going to not be studying anymore, not doing research the same way I was anymore, and figuring out my next move in terms of career and employment. And I have ideas, of course, and ambitions and plans. And what I was noticing over the last, I would say maybe 6 months to a year, kind of approaching the end of my PhD, that I was putting a lot of pressure on myself, a lot of urgency, feeling like things had to be at a certain level to feel certain about what kind of career I want. Um, and basically, all of it was to feel safe in what I want to do because it felt certain. And in reality, everything is uncertain all the time. And putting that pressure and urgency on yourself is not going to help you create those conditions to get what you want. And so all of the things that I'm doing now to regulate my stress is to feel certainty in the uncertainty, to feel safety in not knowing. And basically, a big part of the tools that I'm using for that, or that are basically helping me regulate that, is finding my want underneath that certainty, figuring out what it is that I want to feel, why I want it so much, um, and finding ways that I can feel that way already. And so once I kind of get to the other side, of this, which will be once I finish my PhD and I transition over to my next phase, I want to share this because I only want to share things with you guys that really work. And so I have ideas and, things I'm exploring, things that are like working really well and some things that I'm still not sure about. But of course, with all of this, right, is repeated stimulation. And so my scientific self is like, there's not enough ends, there's not enough experiments to be able to say concretely what works. But that is level 6, finding comfortable with the uncertainty. And so the homework I want to give you guys, because and it's just me, right? I love to give homework at the end of every episode. And this is because I want you guys to implement what you learn, because that's the only way that we see progress and change, is to pick one area of life. So maybe that's career, maybe that's finances, family. Pick one area of life, figure out based off of these criteria what level of stress regulation you're at. And then once you've picked that, begin to either write down or notice internally when you're winning at stress regulation in that area based off of the criteria. If the criteria still don't make sense or you have questions about it, throw them in the comments or send me a DM on Synaptic Sylvie at Instagram. It's likely not a you thing, it's likely a me thing. This is something that I just recently developed, so I'm happy to clarify anything. And I would also love for you to share your wins with me, because that is a juicy brain reward to give yourself. It's also brain reward that you give me, and it helps me help you. And yeah, it also shows me that you're doing the homework, which just brings me so much joy. So anyway, with that, guys, I'm going to close the episode. And if you made it all the way through, I'm super proud of you. This can definitely go in that wins homework as a way for you to regulate your stress. And I look forward to the next time we get to chat together. Bye.